Welcome to Funny You Say That with Skeptical Scott and friends. If you've ever re-examined what you were taught about religion and then asked, why did I believe that? Then this show's for you. Please join us as we drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, and believe in as many true things as possible. Hey there, Freedom fans. We've had a lot of interviews lately. Today, as those of us in the States celebrate July 4th, I thought I'd take this opportunity as a reminder of our country's history with religious freedom, as well as move my personal testimony of freedom from religion a step forward. We will finish with the voice of author and constitutional attorney Andrew Seidel, host of the show One Nation, Indivisible. Yes, it's Independence Day, the anniversary of when revolutionaries wearing stockings, ruffled shirts, wigs, and perhaps some light makeup and powder inspired a national No Kings rally. But beyond the flags and July 4th firecrackers, let's talk about something they really cared about: freedom of religion, and maybe more importantly, freedom from religion in government. Contrary to what some revisionist history might tell you, many of the founding fathers were deists, not exactly churchgoers of the evangelical variety. They were Enlightenment thinkers who believed in reason, not theocracy. And when they sat down to write the U.S. Constitution, they made one thing glaringly obvious: there would be no state religion, no divine right of kings, and no pulpit in the Capitol. The Constitution mentions religion exactly once, and it's to say, there shall be no religious test for public office. The First Amendment, it kicks things off saying Congress, quote, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Where do those words come from? Straight from Thomas Jefferson, the same founding father who took a razor and glue to the New Testament and created his own version of the Bible he called The Life and Morals of Jesus of Nazareth. Picture that. He literally cut and pasted passages, and he deliberately left out all miracles, like walking on water or turning water into wine, the resurrection, the divinity of Jesus. He left out any references to the Trinity, any prophecies, anything supernatural. I guess Thomas Jefferson could be a mascot for our saying here on the podcast, since he literally dropped the supernatural and focused on the rational. He saw Jesus as a moral philosopher. Another interesting note: he kept his version of the Bible, stripped of dogma, private during his lifetime. It was only officially published by our U.S. government in 1904. How about our other founding fathers? You can hear some of their thoughts on our Season 1 episodes surrounding the election, but here are some new ones you may not have heard. George Washington was personally religious, but was very cautious about any establishment of religion. He believed every man should be protected to worship a God, quote, according to the dictates of his own conscience. He explicitly rejected any government favoritism of religion. John Adams, our second president, was also personally religious, but also adamant about keeping religion in its place. He signed the famous Treaty of Tripoli of 1797, which states in no uncertain terms, quote, the government of the United States is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion. This was unanimously ratified by the Senate. That brings us to our third president, James Madison, also known as the father of the Constitution, and he was consistent in this regard as well. He wrote, quote, religion and government will both exist in greater purity the less they are mixed together. Ben Franklin wrote, quote, When a religion is good, I conceive that it will support itself. And when it cannot support itself, and God does not take care to support it, so that its professors are obliged to call for the help of the civil power, it is a sign of it being a bad one. I wonder how our founding fathers would react to what we see today in several state legislatures. Louisiana passing House Bill 71 a year ago, requiring the Ten Commandments be posted in every K-12 classroom. Arkansas Act 573 passed just this spring, requiring a 16 by 20 display of the Ten Commandments in all public school classrooms and libraries. There is similar legislation in Mississippi, South Carolina, Alabama, South Dakota, Texas, Utah, and Oklahoma, all at various stages, whether in committee, proposed in the Senate, passed by the House, etc. But all are facing legal challenges based on the Supreme Court decision, Stone v. Graham of 1980, that struck down mandatory postings of the Ten Commandments, citing no clear secular purpose. Would our founding fathers support state governments doing whatever they want? Hell no. And certainly not what we see at the federal level with the 2025 establishment of the White House Faith Office, one heavily skewed by evangelical Christians and conservative Catholics. Shouldn't a faith office be actual representative of other faiths and those of no faiths in our country? Don't worry, there is one Orthodox Jewish member, but there are no official representatives from any other non-Christian faith. So today, in the spirit of liberty and lawful rebellion, let's celebrate a country designed to let you believe or not believe whatever you want without government interference or favoritism. That's true freedom, the kind in our Declaration of Independence that we celebrate today, written by 3 of the founding fathers you just heard from. You'll hear a real call to action for our nation's future later. But now, the next step towards freedom in my personal testimony. Back on Good Friday, you heard a description of what my years at a local church were like in my late 20s and early 30s, especially with the rituals surrounding holidays like Good Friday and Easter. You know, the weekly productions I was digesting each Sunday were just not sitting well with me. Why? When I get into conversations with Christians these days about why I left the church, some quickly go to, "You're not going to tell me a story about church hurt, are you? Remember, Scott, your theology should be based on Christianity, not on how you've seen hypocrite Christians behave. You should worship God, not his followers." Well, I know plenty of hypocrites, and I know plenty of people who've been really hurt by the church, or even kicked out by the church, or kicked out from their family. That's not my story. To me, it just wasn't adding up.
My God, there is no one like our God. He's amazing, our Father is amazing. He is incredible. My God, there is no one like.
It seemed like an elaborate yet convoluted story, and that we were all really trying hard on Sundays to prop up this message of salvation from a supposed God. Behind the scenes, several times, I could see what we were really putting on was a big production. The audience was arriving after grabbing their coffees from the lobby and sitting in comfy chairs ready to consume the message, or at least be distracted from the concerns and daily grind of life. 2 specific services illustrate why I wanted to leave fantasy and embrace reality. First, my family and I attended one of the most popular services of the year. You know the one, Christmas Eve. I know it's popular because I want to say there were 3 or 4 choices to attend the production that day. What would you expect from a megachurch rendition of Christmas Eve? In a way, It was like the fireworks of July 4th, but half a year later, this time with handshakes aplenty, ushers squeezing everyone in, and multiple spotlights of varying colors. The music was in full effect, complete with the chords that pull at you and then resolve. The multi-screens zoomed in and out, and the coordinated worship team was impressive, and their facial expressions in HD on the screen matched. There were brief moments of soft, meandering chords, underscoring the religious leader's calm but emotional preaching, and then the uptick of rhythm and volume as the call to worship climaxed. I remember at that moment thinking, this is all a production. Seconds later, multiple musicians stepped forward for the ultimate conclusion of this Christmas charade. They did something new, nothing we had seen before. They had drumsticks that glowed. Yeah, this birthday party for Jesus may not have had candles on a cake, but glowing drumsticks that light up with each beat of the rhythm. Those special effects take the cake. The sound of the drumsticks put almost a military-like reverence in the atmosphere, a call to action to go forth and spread the virus across the nation. That we have received the ultimate Christmas gift in Jesus, a guy who had a really bad weekend, and it somehow paid for all the bad things we have done and will do because we are rotten at the core. This was not impressive to me. Or maybe it was. It impressed on me that yet again we have a dog and pony show and theatrics to hypnotize us before we all head home and open gifts lovingly purchased through Amazon, and the eternal debt Jesus paid for us somehow. Well, let's just say we will all have debts to pay in January when we get them Christmas bills. Am I being too cynical? Was the problem my heart for not being open to the Spirit that day? Maybe. I suppose I did walk out, not feeling the Spirit, but simply wanting to walk out. The second service I'd like to share was soon after, and in some ways refreshing. We arrived and noticed there was no handshake at the door. That was odd. Then we noticed our son couldn't go to his usual spot for the kids, so we brought him with us. There were no ushers, but we easily found a spot, and the lighting was different. There were not spotlights. The musicians were not on stage. I thought, maybe there's a power outage or something. As the pastor began to preach, I actually was enjoying it, as it seemed more natural. And then it dawned on me when he said, "So, see what happens when we don't have any volunteers?" The whole point was they needed more help to run the church and continually keep this production propped up. As someone who had volunteered and served numerous times, I got the lesson, but one they probably didn't intend. What I got that day was that I preferred a gathering that was more natural, less rehearsed, less produced. And then it made me think that moment, why do we come here each Sunday? I'd rather go for a walk in nature or meet up with a friend than to sit in this contrived space built for consuming Java and Jesus. I guess that was the moment I began to step into the message of John chapter 8, verse 32. The truth shall set you free. I began a new path that day, one out of the voluntary enslavement of Christianity or modern churchianity and into the refreshing clarity of reality. Today, as we celebrate July 4th and our Declaration of Independence, I hope that you too get more freedom from whatever shackles you.
We think it's real important to question what you know. So before you leave this podcast, it's the skeptic of the show.
Today's skeptic is Andrew Seidel, author of the 2019 book, The Founding Myth, Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American, as well as the 2022 book, American Crusade, How the Supreme Court is Weaponizing Religious Freedom. Just hearing those titles likely gives you the idea, right? Andrew Seidel is a constitutional and civil rights attorney and works for the Freedom from Religion Foundation, an organization I proudly support with over 40,000 other members. With his permission, and to conclude, we will feature Andrew Seidel's voice from episode 8 of his show, One Nation, Indivisible. Thank you again, Andrew. And listeners, check our show notes for ways to connect with his important work.
The wall of separation between church and state is an American original. It's an American invention. The idea was born in the Enlightenment, but it was first implemented in the American experiment. Until then, no other nation in the history of the world had sought to protect the ability of its citizens to think freely by separating religion and government. We should be proud of that. And we shouldn't let people undermine it with myths, with historical disinformation about being founded as a Christian nation. Most of the truly unique and original elements of our Constitution are secular. Our Constitution was the first to declare that power comes from people, not gods. The words "we the people" are poetic, but also so much more. They are a declaration of power. Self-government is quite literally impossible if power flows from the divine, but it's natural when power flows from the people. Our Constitution was the first governing document not to mention a god or deity. And it's godless by choice, not by accident. Some people in the founding generation objected to that choice. They were pissed off about it. And there have been movements across our history to rewrite our Constitution, especially the preamble, to add Jesus and to minimize the people. None of those have succeeded, unless you count the Confederate States of America seceding and adding Jesus to their preamble of their Constitution. Boo. Our Constitution was the first to ban religious tests for public office in Article 6. This was the only mention of religion in the original unamended document. And this ban has some of the most clear, emphatic language in a document that is often deliberately vague. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust. No, shall, ever, any. Right? These are clear commands. And if you remember back to your high school civics or government classes, you remember that the Constitution was an outline and later generations were going to come along and define things more clearly. But not this, not the ban on religious tests, not the declaration of power from the people, not the fact that God is not mentioned in the Constitution, and certainly not that ban, no, shall, ever, any. But all of that was still not enough. That's all in the original unamended Constitution. The separation of church and state is woven into the fabric of our Constitution. Right? All of those are really important parts of our Constitution, but still that wasn't enough. They wanted more. And so we got the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Those 6 rights, a secular government, religious freedom, speech, press, assembly, petition, all of those bolster our right to think freely, to believe freely. So the separation of church and state predates the First Amendment, and it's not simply in one half of one clause of the First Amendment. It's everywhere. It's omnipresent. Pulitzer Prize-winning author Gary Wills put it nicely, quote, "We invented nothing except disestablishment. No other government in history had launched itself without help of officially recognized gods and their state-connected ministers." The separation of church and state is an American invention, and that, my friends, is the true legacy of America. That's what guarantees every one of us in this country the freedom to live as ourselves and believe as we choose, so long as we don't harm others. That separation is our only guarantee for true religious liberty, and it's one of the best guarantees for freedom of thought. And as a constitutional attorney, I will be the first to tell you that there is a lot that is wrong with our Constitution, a whole lot. There are many aspirational values written into it that we have yet to live up to. But those secular foundations are what made it unique, and they are genuine contributions, not only to political science and thought, but to all humanity. And those contributions are threatened, undermined, and under attack by white Christian nationalism and the lies, myths, and disinformation it spins. Now, this patriotic framing, I'm pausing in what I think I said sitting at that table with those members of Congress. This patriotic framing of the separation of church and state is where we need to be, where our movement needs to be, where our country needs to be. It's not anti-religion, which I know may get some of my fellow atheists on their heels, but that's true. The separation of church and state is not anti-religious. It's pro-religious freedom and pro-freedom of thought. It is pro-human. And we need to be in this kind of patriotic framing for this right if we want to win, if we want to secure that separation and thereby those freedoms for all.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, Patriots, let us remember the lessons of our history. No kings, no masters. Hey, no shit. High five. Thanks for listening to Funny You Say That with Skeptical Scott and friends. Find all of our episodes and social media channels at skepticalscott.com. Got some feedback or a question? Email me at heyskepticalscott@gmail.com. Drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, believe in as many true things as possible. See you every first and third Friday. America! Heck yeah! Cheers.
They shake and midget man, the one bring back they grin.